welcome to the Dancing Bear Enlightenment Academy Holistic Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Beverly. And tonight I would like to talk about something kind of serious. I hope that's okay. On September 23rd, my astrology indicated that I was going to lose someone that I cared about. Friend, a relative, someone. It wasn't specific. It's just I was going to lose someone. And later that day, unfortunately, I found out that I had lost one of my favorite teachers at PIMA, which was my acupuncture medical school alma mater. And he had passed away that day. Well, I assume he passed away that day. That was the day I found out about it at any rate. And I started thinking about loss and losing people, because when you lose someone, it reminds you of the other people in your life that you may have lost. And if you've been following me, I've been talking about how blessed I am. Gee, I haven't lost anybody. But I did lose someone, and if I may, I'd like to remember him as well as my teacher as just sort of examples of people who you might have in your life, someone similar, and something to think about. The first one was a dear friend. Let me do a share screen. Let me see if I can find share screen. Let's see here. Here we go. Share. Okay. So his name is David Stevens. I'd known him for at least 30 years. We were not intimate, but we had seen, in 30 years, you're going to have a lot of ups and downs, and he had ups and downs. I had ups and downs. He was an artist, had a art studio in Carmel. He went through a terrible, nasty divorce, and then he had a girlfriend for a while and lived near Sedona, and just different things in his life. And while he knew me, I was in Silicon Valley when we met. I left, I came to Arizona, I went to medical school, etc. So we had a lot of changes in our lives, but we were friends. And whenever one of us was down, the other one helped. And I found out that he had left us in 2019, just before COVID hit. Um, and when I think of him as a connector of people. He would talk to a lot of different people, and if this person needed something and that person had it, he would connect us. And that it was just a real blessing that he was able to connect people. So it was one of his big gifts. And he was always giving, and he never asked or expected anything in return. He just was a very kind, giving person. And I felt really blessed to have known him, but I also felt very blessed that in the last 4 or 5 years, I had not lost even one friend or relative. But then I realized I had lost, let me change to the next picture. So this is also a picture of him. I don't know if that's California or Hawaii. It kind of looks like Hawaii. But this is a reminder to take pictures of friends. We'll talk about that again in a minute. But then I found out I'm going to change to Dan Bedgood. This is Dan Bedgood. Let me make it a little bigger. Oops, too big. There we go. So this was my teacher that I lost. And he was one of the voices in my head. Maybe you have a mom or a dad or a teacher, someone who's the voice in your head that when you're going to do something, it's like that's the person that you hear. So when I'm needling or doing acupuncture, he's there. He's the voice in my head. He was an expert at spiritual acupuncture, and the only teacher at the school who was. Most people were more clinical. He was very clinical, but he was also very spiritual. So I always made sure I had at least one of my clinical rotations with him. And I took a lot of classes from him. But he was really understood energy and how to move the energy. He was even a Qigong master, and I'd taken Qigong classes from him. Um, and in some of the other classes, he had us write papers, and I found myself becoming very interested in the extraordinary vessels or channels. Most people are familiar with the main channels. People call them meridians. So they're on the hands, on the legs, on the torso, up to the face and the head. But the extraordinary vessels are internal, and they have an opening point on the body and a closing point on the body. And they're very, very powerful. Most of them follow, if you studied embryology, you know, the egg folds and flattens and rolls. And there's this thing called embryonic folds. And a lot of the extraordinary vessels are on embryonic folds. And sometimes what people need is to have one of those channels cleared. I don't use the term meridian because the textbook I learned from called them channels. The literal translation in Chinese is vessels. So I say vessels or channels. But other people call them meridians. We're talking about the same thing. And there's a channel that goes up the front called the Ren or conception vessel. That's also an extraordinary vessel. And then there's one that comes up the back over the head and into the mouth. And that's called the Du or governing vessel. So it's the yin and the yang. And it goes in a figure 8. There's a whole meditation. If you've heard my other podcasts, I've talked about it, and in my classes, I talk about the figure 8, and it's one of the meditations that you can do moving energy in the body. And so he taught me how to needle in a figure 8. And you always have a midpoint. It's pretty special. I also one time he was showing us students how to control the energy through the needle, how to hold the needle, how to bring in the energy, how to needle. And he stood next to someone, and he just pointed a needle at the person's shoulder. And then he never inserted the needle. He just pointed it. And you could see the energy moving into the person's body, down their arm and torso, all the way down to their knee. And then he stopped. And I think he had the person he did this with, he was a friend of mine. And I think he had pain somewhere on that side of the body. And by moving that energy through it, cleared the pain. He never touched him. He never inserted the needle. And, you know, when you're a student, that's like, yay, I don't even need needles to heal people, which, of course, anybody doing energy work already knows that. So this is the kind of person he was. He was a credible teacher, very skilled. So needless to say, everyone from the school will miss him. So I guess I would say that sometimes we don't know who we're going to miss until they leave. We always think, oh, they'll always be there. And then one day they're just gone. And it's sad. I'm very sad at his death. In fact, I'm having trouble right now talking about it. Oh, it's taken me a couple of days to even record this because at first I had to go through a grieving process, and it brought up all my stuff about David. So when you lose someone, it does make a profound difference in your life. No matter how close you were, they leave that memory that stays with you for the rest of your life. So my suggestion for you at this time is to appreciate each day and every person in your life. Because once they're gone forever, at least, you know, in this life. And, you know, if you can talk across the veil, maybe you can reach them again. I don't recommend talking to the dead, although sometimes they come to me and talk and ask me to give a message, but I never go to the dead. but they hear us, they know what's going on. But what they leave behind is the impact that they have made on our lives. And we call that their legacy. So I invite you to think about, what is your legacy? What do you want to leave behind? And I also encourage you to take a photograph of everyone in your life that you love, because once there's gone, there's no new pictures. Let me show you another picture of Dan. Let's see here. Let me change. I think I only have a few pictures. Oh, that's really tiny. There we go. It's a little fuzzy. There he is eating. Oh, that was really tiny. And he walked with a stick. But he was really an awesome human being. I don't think I ever saw him get angry. And he just had so much to share. Such a beautiful person. So, sorry. Most of all, I ask you just to take a moment to remember them and those that you have lost, and to thank them for how they have changed you and the impact that they have made on your life, the legacy that they have left behind, so that you have, and journal, of course, I have my journal here. I recommend everybody journal. Write it down. Who do you love? What is the voice in your head? How have they impacted you? What is the impact you want to leave? What is your legacy going to be? And who are you the voice? Whose head are you the voice in? I don't know how to say that. Um, and hopefully that's positive voice. Um, so just um, this is my thank you to both of them for being my friend and having such a positive impact on my life. So thank you for joining us, and remember to be the light you want to see in the world.